I want to start, Ray, you have a book, Principles for Dealing with a Changing World Order, in which you take a very broad historical view of, or a very broad view of history and look at cycles and think about, and study them and think about how the world is evolving and has evolved. And if I can sort of summarize it a little bit, it's you're looking at the cycles and then you're looking at the present moment and you're seeing where we are in those cycles, and it doesn't look so good. Is that it in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, I'll embellish on it a little bit.
Please embellish.
I'm a very practical market guy who's got a global macro investor who's got to place bets. And in my life, there have been a number of times where things came along that I never saw before, and they surprised me, cost me money. And then I realized that when I studied history, that they happened many times in history, repeatedly. So there were three things that are happening now in our lifetimes that never happened before, and that led me to do the study, and then I found that there are 5 big influences. Okay, the three things is the amount of debt and money creation, the monetization of the debt and creations of huge amount of debts. And I wanted to study the rises and declines of reserve currencies and all of that. The second is the amount of internal conflict, populism of the left, populism of the right, that is operating as that conflict, almost a threat to our system. Mm-hmm. And number 3 was the great power conflict between particularly China and the United States. So in my whole lifetime, the United States was a more dominant power, and now we have a great power conflict. So I needed to study those 3 things, and then in studying that history, I found out that the fourth force was acts of nature. Droughts, floods, and pandemics killed more people and toppled more orders than the first 3, so they're a big issue. And of course, climate is a very big issue, cost-wise, what it means. And number 5, of course, is man's evolution in their understanding, and particularly technology. And so we know that technology is going to be a giant force. So I needed to study the patterns or the histories and the cause-effect relationships. And by studying it over that 500 years, it helped me a lot, which, by the way, is not just in the book, but also I did a video that I think is about 40 minutes called The Changing World Order. And if you want to see the video, you can get it in a nutshell.
So help us understand how you think about taking 5 very, very broad observations, trends, things that you see from history. How do you take that and turn that into investable actions, or even forget about investing, or take investing, but then also take how you live your life, how you think about your aspirations, how you think about where you want your life to go, where you want your children's life to go. How do you take those big things and turn them into daily decisions, daily actions?
The first thing I need to do is convert it into data, so that I can objectively see things. So you'll see in the book, for example, there's relative education levels, relative 18 measures that go back over the 500-year period so that you can see the cause-effect relationships. I then take those and convert those into indicators. And then that then helps me in my decision rules. I call those principles. But in other words, if this, and this is happening. So for example, I wrote the book about 3 years ago, and there's an arc there about the cause-effect relationships. And since then, there's the January 6th, there's the internal political conflicts, there are these conflicts, blossoming. And I understand them better because I know how to measure them and use them as indicators, such as economic warfare precedes military warfare. Doesn't mean anything is predestined, but when you can understand it like the progression of a disease or something, it's important. And I think that a lot of people make the mistake of seeing everything up close.